Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mother told her to take a basket of food to her grandmother. Her mother told her not to go off the path because it wasn't safe. Soon she met a wolf. He smiled and said, "Where are you going, Little Red Riding Hood?" Little Red Riding Hood said, "I'm taking this basket of food to my granny's house. I'm sorry, but I have to get going." The wolf grinned and said, "Have a nice day." And Little Red was on her way. The wolf knew where Grandma lived. He took another way to Grandma's house. He knocked on the door and Grandma answered the door. He grabbed Grandma and locked her up tight in the closet. He dressed up like Granny, put on her shawl and cap, and hopped into bed. Soon Little Red Riding Hood got to the house and said, "Grandma, can I come in?" The wolf said, "Open the door and come in." "What a deep voice you have," said Little Red. "The better to greet you with," said the wolf. "Grandma, what big eyes you have," said Red. "The better to see you with," said the wolf. "Grandma, what big teeth you have," said Little Red. "The better to eat you with," growled the wolf, and he started chasing Little Red. A nearby hunter heard her screams and burst into the cabin, killed the wolf, and saved both Grandma and Little Red Riding Hood. The Three Little Pigs. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. One pig built a house of straw, while the second pig built his house with sticks. They built their houses very quickly and then sang and danced all day because they were lazy. The third little pig worked hard all day and built his house with bricks. He did not take time to play with the other pigs. A big bad wolf saw the 2 little pigs while they danced and played and thought, "What juicy, tender meals they will make." He chased the 2 pigs and they ran and hid in their houses. The big bad wolf went to the first house and huffed and puffed and blew the house down in minutes. The frightened little pig ran to the second pig's house that was made of sticks. The big bad wolf now came to this house and huffed and puffed and blew the house down in hardly any time. Now the 2 little pigs were terrified and ran to the third pig's house that was made of bricks. The big bad wolf tried to huff and puff and blow the house down, but he could not. He kept trying for hours, but the house was very strong and the little pigs were safe inside. He tried to enter through the chimney, but the third little pig boiled a big pot of water and kept it below the chimney. The wolf fell into it and died. The 2 little pigs now felt sorry for having been so lazy. They too built their houses with bricks and lived happily ever after. The grasshopper and the ant. In a field one day's summer days, a grasshopper was hopping about, chirping and singing and playing his fiddle to his heart's content. An ant passed by, working very hard to carry corn to his nest. "Why not come and chat with me?" said the grasshopper, "instead of working so hard." "I'm helping to put food up for the winter," said the ant, "and I suggest you do the same." "Why bother about the winter?" said the grasshopper. "We have plenty of food right now." But the ant went on its way and continued its work. When the winter came, the grasshopper had no food and found itself dying of hunger, while it saw all of the ants eating their corn and grain from the stores they had collected in the summer. Then Grasshopper knew it is best to be prepared for the days of necessity. Beauty and the Beast. Once upon a time, a merchant was taking a journey, and his daughter Beauty asked him to bring her back a rose. Beauty's father found a castle, went inside, and found food and a soft bed to sleep on. The next day, he plucked a red rose from a rose bush. An ugly beast appeared and roared, "I gave you food, a bed to sleep in, and now you steal my roses?" The frightened merchant told the beast about Beauty. The beast decided to let him go only if he promised to send Beauty to his castle to stay. Beauty loved her father, so she agreed to go stay with the beast. The beast was kind to Beauty. One day, the beast asked Beauty to marry him, But she refused because she was still scared of his fearful-looking face. Beauty missed her family, so the Beast gave her a magical mirror so she wouldn't feel lonely anymore. One day, Beauty looked in the mirror and saw that her father was dying. She went to the Beast and begged him to let her go home. The Beast told her she could go, but she had to return in 7 days. Her father, on seeing Beauty, felt very happy and soon got well. Beauty stayed with her family for 7 days and more. One night she had a nightmare in which she saw the Beast was dying. He was crying, "Beauty, please come back." Beauty woke up and went back to the castle. Beauty said, "Don't die, I will live with you forever." The Beast, who had been under a spell, changed into a prince. They soon married and lived happily ever after. The Ugly Duckling. A little duckling was very sad because he thought he was the ugliest among all his brother and sisters. They would not play with him, and they teased the poor ugly duckling. One day he saw his reflection in the water and cried, "Nobody likes me. I am so ugly." He decided to leave home and went far away into the woods. Deep into the forest he saw a cabin where an old woman, her hen, and her cat lived. The duckling stayed with them for some time, but he was unhappy there and soon left. When winter came, the poor duckling almost froze to death. A poor man took him home to his wife and children. The duckling was afraid of the children and he escaped. The ugly duckling spent the winter in a marshy pond. Finally, spring came. One day the duckling saw a beautiful swan swimming in the pond and fell in love with her. But then he remembered how everyone made fun of him and he bit his head down in shame. When he saw his own reflection in the water, he was surprised. He was not an ugly duckling anymore, but a handsome young swan. Now he knew why he had looked so different from his brothers and sisters. They were ducklings, but I was a baby swan, he said to himself. In time, he married the beautiful swan, and they lived happily ever after. The Tortoise and the Hare. The hare was once boasting of his speed before the other animals. "I have never yet been beaten," said he, "when I put forth my full speed. I challenge anyone here to a race with me." The tortoise said quietly, "I accept your challenge." "That is a good joke," said the hare. "I could dance around you all the way." "Keep your bragging till you've won," answered the tortoise. "Shall we race?" So a course was fixed and a start was made. The hare almost ran out of sight at once, but soon stopped, and to show his dislike for the tortoise, lay down to have a nap. The tortoise plodded on, slowly moving, and when the hare woke from his nap, he saw the tortoise just near the winning post, and could not run up in time to save the race. Then the tortoise said, "Slow but steady progress wins the race." The Boy Who Cried Wolf. There was a little village in the hills. Each night the people in town would take turns watching the sheep to keep them safe from the wolves. It was Peter's turn to stay out all night and watch the sheep. Peter got bored, so he'd find ways to amuse himself, such as throwing rocks, climbing trees, and chasing the sheep. But nothing really kept him amused for very long. Then he hit upon an idea. He climbed to the top of the tallest tree and started shouting towards the village, "Wolf! Wolf! Wolf! Wolf!" One man heard him, got the other villagers, and they came running. The villagers were very angry with him. His mother gave him a spanking, and he went to bed without dinner. This happened twice more, and the villagers learned that they couldn't trust Peter. Then one night the wolf did truly come at last. Peter saw the wolf and shouted for help in fear. "The wolf is killing the sheep!" But no one paid any heed to his cries, nor came to help him. The wolf, having no fear, killed the whole flock. There is no believing a liar, even when he speaks the truth. The Three Wishes. A poor woodcutter went to the forest to cut wood. He was about to cut an oak tree when a fairy appeared and begged him to spare the tree. The woodcutter was a kind man and did not cut the tree, and the grateful fairy granted him 3 wishes. When he reached home, he was hungry. He remembered the fairy and wished for black pudding. At once he saw a bowl of the finest black pudding in front of him. The woodcutter told his wife about the fairy, but she did not believe him. To test the wish, he wished that the pudding would stick on her nose. Suddenly, the pudding stuck on his wife's nose. They tried hard to pull it off, but it was stuck. The woodcutter asked, "Would you rather be a queen with pudding on your nose or a poor woodcutter's wife?" She wished for the pudding to be off of her nose. So they thought they had the finest pudding for dinner. They had used up all the wishes and remained poor for the rest of their life. The bundle of sticks. An old man on the point of death called his sons around him to give him some parting advice. He ordered his servants to bring in a bundle of sticks, and to the eldest son, "Break it." The son strained and strained. With all his efforts, were unable to break the bundle. The second son tried to break the bundle of sticks, and he could not break it either. Then the third son tried, but he was unsuccessful. "Untie the bundle," said the father, "and each of you take a stick." When they had done so, he called out to them, "Now break it." Each stick was easily broken. "You see my meaning," said their father. "In unity there is strength." Little Red Hen. On a farm there lived many animals and birds. One day, Little Red Hen found a grain of wheat in the farmyard. She asked the other birds, "Who wants to build this wheat?" The duck and the goose were lazy and quickly refused to do any work. So the Little Red Hen planted the grain of wheat. When the wheat was ripe, the Little Red Hen asked again the other birds, "Who will take the wheat to the mill?" The duck and the goose again ignored the Little Red Hen and continued playing. When it was time to make bread with the flour, the Little Red Hen did the work all by herself. At last it was time to eat the bread. The duck and the goose stood close, thinking that they would get a share. But the Little Red Hen said, "I will eat the bread alone because only I worked for it." She called her chicks, and they had a feast. Cinderella. Once upon a time, there was a very kind girl named Cinderella. She lived with her stepmother and 2 stepsisters who treated Cinderella very badly. One day, they were invited for a grand ball in the king's palace. Cinderella begged to go with them, but her stepmother would not let her go. Once they were gone, she did what she was told and began cleaning the house. Suddenly, a fairy godmother appeared and said, "I will send you to the ball." The fairy godmother waved her magic wand, and Cinderella was dressed in a beautiful gown, glass slippers, and had a coach to take her to the ball. Before leaving, the fairy godmother said, "Cinderella, this magic will only last until midnight. You must come home by then." Cinderella entered the palace, and nobody knew who she really was in her pretty clothes and shoes. The handsome prince danced all night with her, and they fell in love. Then she remembered the magic would wear off by midnight, so she ran out of the palace without telling the prince her name. One of her glass slippers came off her foot, but Cinderella left it behind. The prince found her glass slipper. He said, "I will find and marry the woman whose foot fits this slipper." He came to Cinderella's home. Her stepsisters tried to squeeze their foot into the glass slipper, but they failed. Cinderella's stepmother would not let her try on the glass slipper. The prince told her to try. The slipper fit perfectly. Suddenly, the prince recognized her from the ball. He married Cinderella, and they lived happily ever after.